And just as a summary,
excuse me, Ms.
yes.
You had mentioned 2013 payables that were remaining. You gave us a total sum. What was that number again?
It was in excess, probably about 1.3 million. There was like 700 plus on the books. And then I'm just saying two of the notable ones. Right. And there were lots of others, but those were like the big ones, the waste management that we were all aware of, and also the insurance bill had not been paid. The normal is about $200,000 a year. So those were paid. In addition, there was a missed OP&F bill, and they run like $100,000. So I'm just saying that actually the bills that were paid in 2013, and we have paid all of 2013 bills, that's of course detracted from the monies that were available for 2014, in addition to having to subtract out those advances. So, doing the analysis, which took us a while, and I apologize for it being late, but I thought it was more important to get some good numbers so you'll understand them as we go through them. So, in summary for 2014, in terms of the general fund, the general fund is going to show like a $1,593,000, and when you add it all together, which is basically the revenue minus the expenses for the general fund, it's going to show a deficit of about 1.5. So when you add that to the 1.3 that was on the books, that brings us like about 2.8. And if you look at the forecast that the auditors, in fact, they sent me one and they're coming to meet with us, their deficit is right on, is spot on. They projected like a $2.8 million deficit in the 14. So we sort of agreed on that number because of those bills. So if we want to look at the resources, there's a lot of paper. I will go through slowly. We're looking at the 2014 estimated resources. And we'll start with page 1. The last column on that to help you identify is change in 2014 estimated resources. That's the last column on that particular document. Okay, everybody has that? Okay. So basically, this is a list of all the sources of revenue, and as requested in the previous meetings, you have the 2011, 12, 13, so you can just sort of see some of the historical numbers. The column, the first shaded column, it says 2014 revised estimated resources. Those are the numbers that's on file with the Budget Commission that were approved back in July. So that's like our current operating budget. The purpose of this discussion is to realign those numbers as we have had the experience so that we do not be in violation of the ordinances. There's two things that we have to accomplish in terms of the audit. One is horizontally, we have to be in terms of the line item, not exceeding what we budget. And then of course, when you look at it vertically, they want to make sure you don't have a deficit. Well, we know we have a deficit, so. But as we read across, and I won't bore you with this, the first shaded column is the current operating budget. The next column where it says estimated resources January through December, that is my realignment number, just so that based on the revenue that we encumbered, taken in for this year. And the last column shows you the change between what was budgeted back in July and where we are now for various reasons. So as we go down the column, you can see the bracketed numbers means we did not meet our targeted revenue source. Of course, if it's a positive number, that means we went over. So like I said, I won't read all of the numbers, but you can see like property taxes, we went over $105,000 in terms of what was budgeted. And again, like I say, those fluctuate. They give us an estimate in December of every year, and that's the number you see in terms of our original projection. But as money come and go, I guess, or more taxes are collected, that number can go up or down. So it went up 105,000. The next number is the kicker, the RETA. You can see that it's budgeted, projected to be $310,000 less. There's a couple reasons. There's a liability that was placed for a past bill from several years ago that they're now collecting on Pennzoil. I don't know if any of y'all heard about that. They're taking that out from our revenue at the tune of $10,000 a month. So for a whole year, like next year, that'll be $120,000. Okay, so that's one issue we have. And then again, like I say, there was an advance taken on Rita. So, you know, those reduce the numbers. The next large one is the city collected income tax. I projected that based on what we've actually collected and not projected in additional. Those are the dollars that were pretty much being collected in-house that are now being collected by Rita. So, you know, there'll be a shift in there. It's not to say that we will net any less dollars. It just will be a shifting of the source. So I expect to see the Rita collected income taxes to go up, but, you know, I won't be able to measure that until next year to see what impact that had. Of course, the other big one is the traffic camera. If you look down to the traffic cameras, you'll see that I had originally projected the 1,142,000. That's in the shaded column. And I estimate that what we would end up with is maybe 1,000,001, which is pretty close to the projection, which may be a 30,000. But again, the money is still flowing in, so it could even surpass our original estimate back in July when I projected the $1.1 million. Let's see, the other one we have is the permits. You know, we talked about that, and it's just that it was budgeted based on like last year's resources, and from what we have on the records, it's about $200,000 less, so I was going to adjust that. And some of these numbers are maybe overly conservative, but I would rather budget less in revenue and have more come in than the budget high and the money doesn't come. So,
excuse me, Ms. Kroll?
yes.
With permits, what all is included in that line item?
That would be any permit building. I mean, probably Mr. LaConte can tell us all, but it's all the permits that come through.
The building department?
Yeah, the building department. I mean, I don't have that all the list, but you know, the inspections and housing and whatever.
So everything that comes in for the building department will be in that line item then?
Yes, except the fees. Of course, we don't collect it anymore, but the old escrow money was not there. It had its own separate fund. And then the fees that you were talking about, the 3% that they pay, is in a separate fund. You know, so those are not included there.
But everything else?
For the most part, you know, I don't want to be held to that, but our basic operations that's going on in the building department is coming through that number.
Yes. Question. Can you explain the city collected income tax?
That's the money that was being collected at the city when Gary was performing the income tax.
Okay.
And so the majority of it, my understanding, comes in by filing date, or at least by the summer. So this is where it was in June. And I did not project any additional dollars because they're going to RETA now. So like I say, next year I'll be able to measure to see if the RETA income tax goes up, the money that they send to us.
Basically, I'm sorry, it's basically Gary was actively reaching out through amnesty and stuff like that and collecting this money. And now all that responsibility shifted to Rita?
Yes, and we're in contact with them daily, and they are collecting. I mean, we're getting a lot of activity through them. I'm in contact with them. I'm sorry?
They collect a fee on that though, right?
It's a 3%, but some of that is rebated at the end of the year, or at the end of their fiscal year, I should say.
Ms. Kroll, so then 2011 and 12 and 13, that same line item, the city collected income tax, those are directly related to Gary's work, just what Gary
I don't want to
was
speak
doing.
on that. I'm going to make an assumption because of the entitlement of that line, but not being here, you know, it could be of his work. And people do come in and pay even though we don't. So it's not necessarily taxes that we file. We have people coming to the window now. It's not a lot, but they'll come as a convenience versus going to Rita. And we would take the money and send the information to Rita for them to update their file with them. So some of it maybe is from that, and like I say, other people just found it convenient. But income taxes as a whole went down. So even though those are high numbers, it doesn't suggest that that would have stayed, because like I say, 83,000 is what had been collected by the time that Gary left, which was long after tax season was over.
Irene,
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
so I would say Gary was pretty efficient.
Well, you have to look at the time. Like I say, taxes went down, period. If you look at this current year, the 83,000,
Yes.
okay, like Gary left the end of May. So tax season was over for the most part. So it, you know, was slowing down anyway. So it's just hard to say. I mean, less taxes are being collected now just because of the time. You know, people just aren't paying like they were in the past. Because I mean, even those collected by Rita is down. So I'm just saying that the trend is down. Now, how much down is hard to say.
So did you say maybe it would be worthwhile putting someone on in finance to collect the city income tax? You did.
I didn't feel that, you know.
You didn't feel
I mean,
that.
I know that the records probably suggest that from years past, but going forward, I didn't feel that. I felt that those resources could be better utilized to help manage the finance department, to help us keep on top of things, and especially like the purchasing, because that's where the deficit was really a function of purchasing procedures and keeping up with invoices and, you know, the spending. So now we have an excellent person that's really on top of that. Pretty much the staff, and I have to applaud them. They're using purchase orders so we can track all the money that's being spent, and we know where we are in that regard. So I think that switch has been well worth it for that reason alone. I mean, we may have gained an extra $15,000 or $20,000 in that line item, but then we may lose hundreds of thousands because we're not on top of the bills and purchasing. So it's a trade-off, you know. And it only till next year I'll see if the Rita goes up, because we are monitoring that. I'm working very closely with Brian Thunberg and his staff that he has assigned, and it's Patty. And, you know, we're in contact at least once or twice a week about issues, and they're collecting a lot. Because she called the other day and said, boy, I don't see how you all kept up with all this, you know, with people coming in. And basically we've said that, and it's the same principle, if they want to have their penalty abated in any fashion, they must pay in full all taxes and interest, which is basically what Gary was telling them. Otherwise, you know, they have to go on a payment plan. So it's basically we just transfer the responsibilities, but not the functions have changed it.
Thank you.
So on page 2, as we move along, it's pretty much saying, one of the things I like to point out is that we did receive a rebate from Ohio Bureau of Workers' Comp. You'll see that for $145,000, so that really boosted. And then also, we moved the employee health care contribution, the $140,000 from a fund where it was just sitting, but that's really to offset the premium that we paid. We paid the premium out of the general fund. So these are the dollars, our monthly subsidy, that offset those premiums that we pay. So that added an extra $100,000+ in that in the general fund. And then the last large one that you see is the transfer from the rainy day fund, the $250,000.
Irene,
Yes.
we have talked about this before, but I still see the railroad retribution money listed there, and I had thought we were going to go back and look at it. You haven't.
And we did. I mean, we were looking at it today. It was coming in under that name.
Gate fee?
It's still coming in, the fees are still,
Because I looked at the revenue before I came, and we're still getting it, unless we're calling it something different, but the money is coming in.
from the railroad.
Yeah, that's what it says.
Well, that's,
So,
we won't say a word then.
yeah.
We just keep quiet and move on.
Because
I don't know if that's a good idea.
Yeah, just today, I went back just to double check, so it's still coming in. So, having said all of that, the first shaded column says 2014 revised estimated resources. And again, this is the general fund budget that was approved in July, the $13,072,150.59. And so the white column is where I see that the revenue actually is at this point, which is $13,189,037, which is an increase of $116,886. So basically, with the approval of this body, I would change the previous revised budget to the $13,189 to bring in a line with what we've actually received this year. So the books will show an additional $116,000 in the revenue.
Ms. Kroll,
Yes.
the employee health care contributions, you transferred that from its own fund, instead now it's coming into the general fund, right?
Right, it was improperly accounted for. The 700 series are pass-through dollars. It's a fiduciary, the way that the chart of account is set up, monies, and that's why the escrow was placed over there in the 700, because it was a pass-through. It did not, was not to aid the operations. What this money is, this is money that correlates directly with the premiums that we pay. So either we would have to put the premiums over there, you know, to offset it and transfer money from the general fund, but the one is a function of the other. And we did several of those kinds of realignments to bring the revenue to be commensurate with where the operation expenses are paid. So you'll see different shifting of that nature. I wouldn't say it's a transfer, it's just a movement.
Yeah. I know we've talked about this before, but could you please explain that again? What the employee healthcare contribution is, why it's in its own line item, what we do with that money? Could you please explain that?
That's the money that the employees pay. For single, it's $100 for some. For the non-bargaining, of course, the unions have their own amounts. And for family, it's $200 that comes out of our paychecks. That's what that is. So the city pays the premium in total. We do not pay Medical Mutual minus that amount. We send the total payment to Medical Mutual, and then this offsets. It's like a contra account.
Question.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Did you see that on TV about these streaming that pay their premiums for the fire department?
I heard about it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't watch much TV
It was
because when I get home, the news and stuff.
devastating. Now, is all our health care premiums?
Yes, we're current on
Vision,
all of
dental,
we're current
everything.
on all of our benefits. That's one thing that, you know, I have, Melissa has a checklist of all of the, you know, standard bills that come out when they're due, like the waste management and those, and so she goes down the list and pay them.
Yeah.
So those we pay. I mean, there may be some others that may be, and we try to keep them all within 45 days to 60 days, as the gentleman said. You know, they may be a month or a month and a half behind, but I think that's what I said. 2014 in and of itself was not the culprit. I mean, we just paid out $1 million in debt service. I thought that was tremendous, that we were able to pay that, along with 3 payrolls in October. So I think that we're doing, you know, considering everything.
So 2013, that it could have been maybe lagging 3 months, 4 months behind on the payments?
Some were, I mean, each had its own, but I know that there was a couple OP&F we had to pay, and those are like $100,000. So there was a couple of those that were paid in 14 for 13. And the same with waste management, we all know that it was like $442,000 behind, and we're absorbing that this month. You know, although it has its own fund, but still, it has it had to be paid while we were waiting for the assessments to come in. And then the normal insurance, we had a special session about that during the meeting, so when I go before the board, and we were able to pay that, I think in July or sometime, but it was due in October. So at least a quarter of it. 1 quarter's in the previous year, and then the 3 quarters this year. So we paid the 1 quarter for this year from October through December, and then we'll pick January through September in 2015, because that's the period that it's covering.
Thank you.
Arlene, could you OP&F again, what that means?
Oh, I'm sorry, the Ohio Police and Fire
Oh, okay.
Pension Fund. Sorry.
You were caught up on the pension funds?
Yes, our health benefits are caught up.
Thank you.
Irene,
Yes.
what do you think was the original purpose for having the employee health contribution separate?
I don't know. I mean, I just didn't, I don't know. Because like I say, according to the standard in the chart of accounts, you know, like 100 general funds to 200 are special. The property is in 300 or 400. I mean, there's so series. The 700 were like fiduciary custodial funds, pass through. So I don't know why it would be.
So this wouldn't be money that we are simply acting in a fiduciary capacity on behalf of someone else, our employees, by holding this money and then paying it on their behalf. This isn't similar
No,
to
the
that.
premium is paid in full. We get a bill. They do not split the bill between the employer's share, and they have no idea what we contributed. I mean, that's internal. And by bargaining units, all they know is that it may cost $1,000 to cover Kathy or me or whatever. We pay them $1,000. And internally, different groups, different departments pay different things. I mean, contribute a different amount. They don't have anything to do with that. They just want the full amount. But that's the city, you know, the money really comes back to the city. So it's the city's money. And the premium is paid out of the general fund, so the contributions belong in the general fund. We would call that a contra account.
So like we're reimbursing ourselves.
Exactly. Okay, on page 2, there's no other question about the revenue. I made Madam Chair move on. These are the special funds, and like I was saying, like the 200 special revenue funds. And these funds are, the way it's supposed to be set up, you know, these are designated revenues, you know, or grant funds. They belong in this series. So, I mean, they're sort of self-explanatory. There's the street lighting fund, and then the different sources. One of the unexpected sources you can see was the cat tax. We received $17,000 from the cat tax, which supposedly the cat tax had gone away. I'm on page 2 in the other funds, and I was looking at the street lighting, and it just shows the sources of what we received from the property taxes, the homestead rollback, and then the transfer. And these transfers had been part of our original budget when it was approved to transfer money to certain funds, and you'll see that when we get to the expenses. So as we move along, it's basically the same principle. The green is the shaded column are the ones that we have on file that we budgeted. And the next column, January through December, is my recommendation of what we need to realign those numbers. And the third column that shows the change. So in most cases, there's no significant changes in that, except on the second page, the solid waste. I had projected 1.5 and 550,000, and it came in about $26,000 less than what was projected. So, I mean, I don't know if you have any specific questions about any of them, but.
On page 4, the healthcare fund is what we were just talking about. We'll
Yes.
transfer that.
Yes, we moved it. It's not a transfer.
Question about the grass tree maintenance. What happened to that money?
Same thing, that moved to the general fund because that was an operation of the city. It wasn't restricted per se, or a special revenue number was not set up for that.
Where was that
And it
moved
didn't
to?
belong in the 700, it's not a pass-through per se. Because if we did not collect any money, the city would still be obligated to pay the landscapers. So that's why it's a general operation, it was moved to the general fund.
Where was it moved to in the general fund?
That on page, probably on the first page someplace over there. Let's see, under the special assessment collections. It's about
On the first
halfway.
page?
It's about
Special
halfway the
assessment.
first page.
Special assessment collections. That's where the
Well-
grass money
Yes.
is now going.
And we will, also what we're doing is setting up special accounts so that things are not grouped in terms of miscellaneous accounts. When you actually get the 2015, you will see some special itemized versus everything in others, or you'll see something that says grass collection or board up or police nuisance. You'll see those, but in the essence of time, we have to set all that up through the computer software.
Now, how much did we bring in from grass?
About 192,000.
Then I would expect the special assessment collections to be up 190,000.
Well, like I say, this is how it was projected in the beginning, and that's part of the reason we're doing a cleanup. Some of these numbers were carried over from previous years without not really, knowing and analyzing all of that. So now what we've done is gone through so that we know what's involved in those numbers. And there were several others that was like, I would say, double posted. I mean, they were in two different places, they were in general fund. And so that's why we're cleaning up all these others.
So how, since we added 190,000 from grass into special assessment collections, why do we not see a significant increase in the estimated resources for that line item?
Well, I think as I just said, that the other line had that number, but if the grass collection was not there, then there would not be, the monies. And that's also true like in other income. Those are numbers that were catch-all numbers, but then there was nothing really to go into those. So like I said, we're realigning them. And if you need more information about that, just send me an email and I'll respond.
Ms. Kroll,
Yes?
a question at the top of page 2. Other income? What is included in other income?
Okay, in the other income, we had, I'll have to go back and look to see, but again, it's sort of like a catch-all account that was being used, and so like I said, that's one of the others that we're going to sift out and itemize. I'll let you know tomorrow.
You have a breakdown of that line item tomorrow?
Oh, yeah, everything, I mean, we'll bring out every transaction that goes into the books. It's just that time does not permit to go through every one of them. But just in perusing the account, I know that income that maybe one time or did not have a specific number, it was usually just placed there.
What is your suggestion that how we should approach this railroad retribution money?
I don't understand the question.
Well, it says here railroad retribution received $158,000 roughly. This is money, from my understanding, that we actually shouldn't be receiving anymore. That contract or that agreement's already up. So how should we approach this $158,000?
I don't know that what you stated is true. I mean, I haven't actually seen the contract. I think I had some discussion with legal about it. There was always a question, maybe someone at this table know better than I do, what the contract says. But like anything else, if you feel it's illegal, this body has the authority to give it back.